Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Ian Chapman, and welcome to today's session on the NBS Toolkit for manufacturers. Just one item of housekeeping before we get into the agenda for this afternoon. We've got about, well, it's growing by the second. We've got about 50 people online at the moment. I've muted all your microphones, so I won't be able to hear if you raise any questions verbally, but please do make use of the question tool in the console and submit any questions that you would like me to answer. What I'll do is I'll save up the questions till the end. We'll have hopefully plenty of time to look at the main themes and the main questions that come out of this afternoon's session, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them there and then. If not, we can send you a specific answer to the question directly after the webinar finishes. So that's all from me, and we'll get starting. But just please be aware, if you want to raise a question, do it using the console rather than speak, because I won't be able to hear you. Okay, let's look at the agenda for this afternoon. Quick introduction to NBS. That's just one slide and a slide from me. Then we're going to look at the background to the NBS BIM Toolkit. Where did it come from? And then moving swiftly on to what it is, what it's all about, how it can help. And what does it mean for manufacturers, and how can manufacturers benefit from the toolkit in a number of ways? And then we'll end with some simple steps in terms of what you can look at next, what you can try. The toolkit is freely available, as you'll see as part of this demonstration, and you can explore it at your leisure, and you can work out how it best can serve your business and what you can do next with it. And then hopefully, as I mentioned earlier, we can tackle some questions and give some answers at the end as well, in terms of what the popular questions are, and hopefully I can pick them up before we finish. We're scheduled to finish at 3 o'clock. I'll keep that prompt. I've got a presentation largely in PowerPoint for the first 20 to 30 minutes or so, and then I'm going to dive into the toolkit online and explain, using the online version, how the toolkit works and give you some pointers in terms of how to access it. So some slides first for me, and then we're going to dive into the toolkit itself. Just a quick note on myself. I'm a chartered engineer, background as a consultant engineer. At NBS, I'm director of the National BIM Library, free-to-use library of BIM objects. I'm a board member of Building Smart UK. Building Smart is the international organisation that develops a number of BIM technologies. Those are things like IFC, the Building Smart Data Dictionary, and other open standard and open access BIM technologies. Building Smart is a not-for-profit organisation. And finally, I've done some work over the past few years on various steering panels for British standards, supporting the government's BIM mandate. The last one I worked on was the Kobe standard that came out towards the end of last year. So that's from me. Moving swiftly on to NBS for a second. NBS is part of an organisation called RIB Enterprises. We trade under a number of brands and have a wide range of products, and I've just listed a few on screen there. The main NBS brands are our specification tools, NBS Create, for example, NBS Building, NBS Scheduler. We've got a number of tools which help you create schedules of works and specification material. We've got the NBS National BIM Library, of course, and we've got the Construction Information Service, which is a service that allows you to get access to British standards, industry documentation, all online, in a nice accessible form without having to purchase them individually. On the other side of the slide there, we've got some brands that we also trade under using the RIBA brand. We have a physical bookshop down in London, as well as an online bookshop. You can purchase books at any time of the day. We have an appointments centre, again online, and a publishing department, so we commission and publish our own books. And then we've got a selection of services that some of your manufacturers will be aware of already. For example, RIBA Product Selector, that's available in both hard copy and online digital forms. Directories of technical information, case studies, and everything that can help you as a manufacturer advertise and get your brand and products out into the market. We've got the RIBA CPD Providers Network. That's a network of manufacturers offering RIBA CPD approved and accredited seminars that can be used and viewed by your potential customers. We've also got the RIBA journal, which we are editor and publisher of, and we do a whole host of other things, almost too numerous to mention really. This afternoon we're official publisher of the approved documents, and a whole host of other things like that. We serve, I think NBS serves about 20,000 customers in one shape or form. Some customers buy our products, some customers use our free-to-use products. We employ over 250 staff serving practices, architectural practices and design practices across the UK. I think there's about 5,000 or so that we are serving in some shape or form. And we've got over 10,000 different manufacturers listed in our directories, many of which use our other services such as NBS Plus, which is a specification product specification tool, whole host of other things. But if you want to find out a little bit more about NBS, by all means, just get in touch, and we can put you in touch with the right people, and you can learn what we do and how we can help you. But let's have a look at the BIM Toolkit and a little bit of the background now. I guess you're hearing more and more about the government's Level 2 BIM package. The government back in 2011 instigated their BIM mandate, and through the course of the subsequent years released a number of standards and guides. So you've got PAS 1192, which looks at the construction phase. It's a standard which looks at the specification for information and how you might handle information during the construction phase. You've got Part 3, which also looks at information during the asset management phase, the operational phase of a building when it's in use, if you like. There's the CSE protocol, which looks at the contractual matters surrounding BIM. You've got government soft landings framework and guides, which help hand over buildings in a way that allows the user to understand how to get the best out of the building and to make sure that the design intent and the overall objectives of the design in the building are achieved, and the building moves into an in-use phase in a more gentle and softer way, hence the title, soft landings. Bottom left-hand corner, we've got COBie spreadsheets. It's part of the Level 2 BIM mandate from the government to create asset information at handover that's in a standardized form. So this is information that will be passed from the contractor, the installer if you like, through to the client who's going to use the building. And the idea behind the government's mandate was that the government, being an owner of lots and lots of different built assets, will want to manage those assets in a consistent way. And a good starting point for that is to collect their information about their assets in a consistent way, and they can compare all sorts of different things in a more systematic way, ultimately leading to creating better value buildings. There was a couple of missing pieces to the jigsaw that were planned by UK government, the BIM task group, that until recently weren't filled, and that really seeded the need and purpose for the NBS BIM Toolkit. So the toolkit fulfills two missing parts of that jigsaw, and those two parts are classification and the digital plan of work. I'm not really going to talk about classification too much this afternoon. That's an art in itself, but suffice to say that the UK hasn't really had a current contemporary classification system that's suitable for the digital environment for some time. And the government recognised this, and the BIM task group, and instigated the BIM Toolkit project to plug that gap. If you want to find out a little bit more about the classification system, get in touch, and we can probably put you in touch with the authors of the classification system here at NBS. And of course, the classification system does feature heavily within the BIM Toolkit. But suffice to say, it's a new, up-to-date classification system that can be used freely to classify products, systems, buildings, everything that we create as part of the built environment. I'm going to focus more this afternoon on the digital plan of work, which is a general title which essentially looks at the overall stages right through from zero, the start of a project inception, through to an asset's in-use phase. So when a building is handed over, that's stage 6, and it goes into in-use phase at stage 7. The RIBA published the plan of work a couple of years ago, and this project, essentially for the NBS BIM Toolkit, has taken that plan of work and introduced lots of technical definitions of objects of products and systems that can be defined and described at each stage of the project. And that's what I'm going to focus on and explain what that is in a little bit more detail as we go through this session this afternoon. This is just, I'm not going to dwell too much on this. This is the specification. This is what part of the government's BIM task group requirements covered. They wanted to create a classification system, and that's what we aim to deliver. The second part of that specification was to provide some standard property sets, some standard descriptions that describe what is built. So whether it's descriptors of a ceiling, or whether it's a description of a table or a floor, we don't have a common language, we don't have a common construction vocabulary. So a big part of the deliverables of the specification, the functional specification provided by the client, was to place that in an online library so that it can be used by industry. So there's some early functional requirements there, and if you're really into reading out what the exact brief is, that's still available online. But the team that was assembled to deliver that project, firstly the client, we've got the Department for Business Innovation and Skills, BIS for short, we've got Innovate UK, essentially the funding organisation, formerly the Technology Strategy Board, and you've got the BIM Task Group. So those are the people that commissioned the project. It was tendered, a number of organisations bid for that work, and NBS was successful in being awarded the contract. Part of our success was the team that we established at the bidding stage. We had a core team comprising of NBS, BDP, BIM Academy, Laing O'Rourke, Microsoft, Mark McDonald, and Newcastle University. And that team was successful in winning the bid, and as we went into the delivery phase, we worked with the steering team to keep us all on the right track. So there's a number of organisations there that we worked with. This project was very much about working with industry, and the success of this project is in wider industry engagement. So the Cross-Institute Steering Group was set up to help us with that. And this is just the starting point where rolling out the BIM Toolkit and speaking to as many as we can in industry at all levels from all disciplines to help make the BIM Toolkit a success. So that's a little bit about the background. The deadline and the timescale was fairly short. We were awarded the contract towards the beginning of November, and we had the fixed deadline of April 2015. So we had pretty much 6 months to deliver the project, and that was no mean feat. And it was testament to the team that was involved and everybody that helped us from wider industry to allow us to launch in April as we did. So that's a bit of the background, but let's have a look at what the BIM Toolkit is. First and foremost, it's online. It's available at toolkit.thenbs.com, and it's a free-to-use resource. It's accessible. You can browse the toolkit. You don't have to sign up. You can just simply browse it as a resource. But if you sign in, you can allocate projects and create new project information, as you'll see as we go through this afternoon. So this is quite a complicated diagram. Don't dwell on it. For now, you can look at this perhaps at your leisure. But essentially, this is the government PAS 11 British Standard, and it describes the flow of information across a typical project. So you've got a client who might need something. The client wants to build a building, so they need information about that. They might want to know the costs, risks, delivery, and so on. They move into a procurement phase, the tendering, early stage procurement, working out who's going to deliver that building for them. Again, there's a lot of information exists at that stage. Then, of course, the contract is awarded. The contractor is appointed. And then they move into a production phase, which is not just production of information, but the actual assembly and construction of the building. And then finally, there's the maintenance and use phase. So if there's nothing else about this diagram that you understand, you do understand, I would imagine, the general workflow of the construction sector, and that's summarised in those red rectangles. You can have a look at PAS 1192 Part 2 later on, perhaps offline, and that can give you a good indication as to how the government intend to run their projects. But essentially, the important aspect of that is that they want to manage the information. So a client, an employer, needs to describe not only the fact that they want to build a hotel or a cinema or an office building, but they need to describe what information they want to collect at different stages throughout the project. So that's very much the context with which the toolkit operates. But in simple language, the NBS BIM Toolkit is about who, what, and when. So who might be the client, so what information are they going to describe, what information do they want to receive, and when might they collect that. So as a client, you may say, I want to know the fire rating of the ceiling system at stage 3, or you might want to know the cost of the lighting system at stage 2. And of course you can ask for the same thing across all the stages and collect information from stage to stage and then compare how things change. How does the cost of the ceiling change from its estimate, perhaps at stage 2, right through to its completion during 5 and 6. So the toolkit is very much about who's going to provide what information and when. So the stages of the project are shown on the bottom screen there, 0 right through to 7. So in simple terms, clients will use the BIM Toolkit to define their information needs. They will describe what information they need in a standard language, in an industry vocabulary that everybody can use. So government, for example, will use the BIM Toolkit to define what information they need across their building projects, across their infrastructure projects, whether they be new build or refurbishment. But of course the supply chain can use the NBS BIM Toolkit to define what they're going to deliver. And if the supply chain uses the BIM Toolkit to define what they're delivering, using the same language, same vocabulary, if you like, then it becomes far more achievable to compare what's being asked for with what's being delivered. So clients ask for something, the supply chain explain that they're going to deliver it. For that information, that can then be checked. So clients have asked for details of the ceiling acoustic rating, perhaps. The supply chain say, here's the details about the ceiling acoustic rating. First check can be made in terms of has that information been provided at the stage it was requested. And of course, computers are good at comparing things and working out what goes wrong and identifying that too. So computers are really good at gap analysis and working out what's missing. So if we can do a lot of that work at early stages of a project, we can work out what's missing from the information that describes what you're going to build. And if we can do that at early stages, such as stages 2, 3, 4, before we get into the construction phase, we can start to correct things before we get onto site, so we can make the site activity far more predictable. We can get better outcomes, better quality, and most importantly, reduce waste. One of the government drivers for their 2025 industrial construction strategy is the reduction of cost. But what that means is reducing waste. It's not about reducing the cost of goods or the cost of services or hammering fees. It's about reducing waste. There's an awful lot of money lost in waste, either waste materials, but actually more so in rework, things that have to be moved or replaced on site because they weren't installed correctly. So the whole idea behind the BIM Toolkit is to allow the design team and the clients to be very clear what information they want. The supply chain can then explain what they're going to deliver. Any gaps in that can be spotted long before they get to site. They can be put right, and then we end up with a more predictable, more efficient, and better buildings, better value for the buildings, not just as they're built through the construction phase, but throughout their life as well. So here I am. Well, I'm masquerading as Stephen Hamill, logged in as the BIM Toolkit, and what you can do is you can look into the toolkit and you can define what information you want at each stage. So on screen at the moment, I've got a snapshot of the toolkit. I'm still in kind of PowerPoint presentation mode, and after I finish the PowerPoint, I will go into the live version and I'll move around a bit more, and you'll probably see how that comes together a little bit easier. But for the time being, I'll just stick with the screenshots. What you can do for any stage of a project, so I'm now looking at a particular stage, and I'm looking at defining what information I want about a gabion retaining wall. So I can describe two things: the level of detail or the level of information. So in the middle of the screen there, we've got level of detail, LOD, and level of information, LOI. And for this stage, I can say I want level of detail 3, which is geometry information. And I can describe what geometry I want. How much detail do I want about the gay-beam walls that I'm expecting the design team and the supply chain to provide. So I'm setting out my requirements. So firstly, there's the geometry detail. Secondly, you can define the information. What information about the gay-beam wall do I want? Do I want performance, load-bearing characteristics? And we can set those parameters using the pre-configured templates that the toolkit contains. Toolkit's got, I think, around about 5,700 different templates, gay-beam walls being one of them, so it covers all the disciplines, right from building fabric and architecture to structural engineering, civil engineering, landscape, building services, everything you'd expect really in terms of content that serves the built environment. It's not just about buildings, the toolkit, it can be used for roads, bridges as well. So I'm defining information, so I can say I want a level of information to accompany the gay-beam wall design at a particular stage, and I will describe that here. And out of the box, you can use the toolkit. All of these definitions come pre-populated with typical requirements at each stage. So you're not having to create your own definitions. You can say, at stage 3, I want level of detail 3 and level of information 3 about my gay-beam wall, and that's it. So that's what clients will do. They will create their demand information. Finding the deliverables is quite easy. You can browse for them, you can search for them. We've got quite a sophisticated library in between, in the background, I should say, that allows you to search for a whole host of products and systems that can then be found, irrespective of whether you use the name that we've applied. You might look for security systems and then find intruder alarm systems or burglar alarm systems. We've got some dictionary information behind the scenes that helps the search perform nicely. So principally, you will just search for what you want to specify, what you want to describe. In this case, I've searched for a boiler, and there's a whole selection of different boiler types listed there. I'm going to select the gas-fired condensing boiler. And that opens up this screen, and I can then read about the definition of that boiler, and I can start to specify what information I want about the boiler. At the moment, I'm looking at level of detail, so I'm looking at the geometry. So you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, the geometry for stage 2 is actually quite basic. It's kind of just spatial requirements, nothing sophisticated. It's just giving some general information about the shape and space that the boiler is going to occupy. This is really useful at early stages, of course, because we need to make sure plant rooms are the right size. It's great for space planning and so on. So the level of geometry detail that's required at an early stage, as you imagine, is quite basic. As you move down, I've moved from stage 2, now jumped rapidly down to stage 5, and you can see just in center screen there, the detail's not great, but you can see that the boiler now has a whole host of connections. The geometry level of detail is far more sophisticated than it was at stage 2 or stage 3 or stage 4, and throughout each of the object definitions, you can imagine that the geometry just gets progressively more sophisticated, such to the point where at stage 6 it can represent what has been installed. So with all of these objects that are defined in the toolkit, it's a library of information. So you can look at what's needed at early stages of a project. Clients can describe what they want, and likewise the supply chain, contractors, designers, manufacturers can explain what level of information they're going to deliver. And it just gets increasingly more sophisticated and detailed as you go from stages 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and so on. So I'm looking now at the level of information again. Again, sticking with the same theme for a gas-fired condensing boiler. Stage 2, all that's being asked for perhaps is just an outline description of the boiler, nothing overly complicated, nothing really too different to what's provided currently. The main difference is, though, this is done in a structured way. It's done in a digital way using standard terms, standard property names, so that when information is exchanged digitally, computers can do some of the hard work and analyze that and spot what's missing and help us put that right. So early stage level of information at the boiler, not too much. Of course, as I move from stages 2 and 3 up to stage 6, a lot more information is required. So at stage 6, this is the stage where the boiler has been installed. You get all sorts of information such as warranty, the manufacturer name, the exact model number, and so on. So this is where the as installed information starts to appear. In between stages 2 and 6, you get performance properties of the boiler duty, and other properties that support the continued kind of design and development of the, in this case, the boiler system. So just flipping back, if I can, stages 2, early stage for the boiler, not really much information is required. Stage 4 introduces performance information, and then when we get to stage 6, you've got the as-built record information. So this is about the manufacturer's name, the model number, and so on. For those manufacturers that are listening, the level of information templates can also be downloaded. So if you want to get a snapshot of the level of information requirements for your particular product, at the top of the level of information tab for all of the objects that are available in the library, you can download a template. That template just downloads in Excel format, and you can open that offline in an Excel spreadsheet form. And that covers the technical information that exists within the BIM Toolkit, but it allows you to look at it offline in the context of your product range, and you can align your product range to those terms. So boiler manufacturers, for example, may use different terms for the same thing. What the toolkit is doing is standardizing those terms so that everybody knows what's required at different stages of the project. And boiler manufacturers, by way of an example, can structure their product data so that they can make this information available in a digital form using the standard terminology. If we do that, then computers can do the hard work, analyze that, work out what's provided, what's missing, and again, we can make the construction phase that bit slicker. Finally, we've got this in private beta stage. This isn't live on the website yet, but this is just a glimpse of where we're heading with the structured information and the BIM Toolkit features. On the left-hand side, we've got the selection of a fan convector that's highlighted there just in grey, kind of halfway down. There's a visual representation of that in the model. This is a free BIM project model viewer, so you can view IFC files. On the right-hand side is a quick report which compares the information that a client's requested, such as service life duration, production year, serial number, barcode. These are the asset information that the client's requested. And the green ticks mean that that information has been provided in the digital form it was requested. The red crosses indicate that that information is missing or lacking in some way. So this is a good example of how, with the use of the toolkit, the standard terms, and if product manufacturers align their product data in digital forms to the BIM toolkit, then clients and the supply chain can analyze that information and make sure that there are no gaps and what has been requested has been delivered. Just had a quick question pop up there in terms of how manufacturers can access the template. I'm going to show you that in the demonstration online in a second, but just to confirm, once you've logged into the NBS BIM Toolkit and you're browsing any particular product of your type, so if you're a boiler manufacturer, you're going to be looking at gas-fired condensing boilers, for example, but likewise, if you're a ceiling manufacturer, you'll be looking at perhaps suspended ceilings. Once you get to that definition on screen and you click on the level of information tab, you can download the manufacturer product data template. And you just click on that link that's highlighted in red there, and up pops the spreadsheet, which you can then view offline. You can use a spreadsheet for whatever purpose you need. You can certainly have a look at it, and we'd love to hear your feedback in terms of the information that's in there, and is there anything that you actually think we should include that we haven't, and is there things in there that you're questioning why they are included. So by all means, please give us your feedback. But I'll show you a little bit of that when I just go live online in a second. So just to finish off now, the information that goes into the toolkit can all be exported in open standard ways. It outputs to COBie. It helps the information from the model be pulled together into COBie form. And in summary, the toolkit is a classification system which you can use to classify, organize your own product literature. This will help people helps architects, engineers find the information they're looking for. The toolkit can assign and manage tasks. I haven't talked about that so far, but it's just another feature of the toolkit which allows anybody who's managing a project within a toolkit to assign different jobs to people and manage who's doing what. Big part of the BIM toolkit is this library of object definitions, 5,000 plus object definitions covering a whole range of disciplines that are there to be used by clients to describe what information they want, and then can be used by the supply chain to say, this is the information I'm going to provide. And if we marry those two together, that's how we achieve some efficiencies and we reduce the problems that we often see on site. So it's a tool that defines what you want and also what you're going to deliver. If you do that, if you define what you want in a digital form, and then you also describe what's going to be delivered, so the supply chain will describe the delivery, then the tool can be clever and it can check the extent to which the supply meets the demand. I'll give you a chance to just briefly read that. This is part of a quote, a statement from Rob Manning, who was our client, representing the government's BIM task group. And he was instrumental in the project, acting as our client liaison. And there's two or three. Sorry, I think my audio dropped out there for a second. I was just talking about the BIM task group and Rob Manning's statement. Can be found on the national on the NBS.com, and we'll send a link to that after the presentation. So just to wrap up, the toolkit is a tool that can generate an outline specification. That's something that once information appears in the tool, users of the tool can generate an outline spec. It's another feature of the toolkit, and it supports open access. We've worked hard to make this information available. It's free to use, and information that's created and used within the toolkit can be exported to Excel spreadsheet, to COBie, to IFC, so that can be used in other platforms. You can even generate the outline specification not just in NBS format, but also in RTF, which is just an open access text format. From a manufacturer's perspective, we'll talk a little bit now about how the toolkit can help you. You can view the toolkit as a few things, but fundamentally it's a place where your digital product information can be found and can be used by those who are looking for it. Bear in mind there's a lot of project information, there's a lot of projects which will be created using the toolkit, and it's a good opportunity to help your digital information that describes your brand and products to be found. So fundamentally, from a manufacturer's point of view, it's a place where you can win business. It's a place where you can connect with those that are looking for products that you offer. So some examples of how we've built in manufacturer's information into the toolkit. At a particular stage, this is stage 2 for a particular product, we make available entries, case studies, product literature, catalogues that are derived from RIBA product selector. So manufacturers that have content that lives within product selector are placed directly within the toolkit in the object definitions section. So ceiling manufacturers will be in the ceiling section, boiler manufacturers will be in the boiler section, and so on. It's an opportunity to present your catalog information, your case studies, everything that would typically live in RIBAproductselector.com. We also play product specifications for manufacturers in the toolkit in an appropriate place. So we've tried hard to place relevant information in the right format at the right time. So at a later stage, stage 3, where maybe the designer or the client is looking to describe what performance information they want, they can also browse our library of NBS Plus manufacturer specifications, and they can discover and find your products via that route as well. Last but by no means least, at later stages of a project where the geometry becomes increasingly important, objects from the National BIM Library can be seen and observed. Again, I'm looking at this stage, stage 5, at ceilings, and ceiling manufacturers that are in the NBS National BIM Library are presented at the bottom of the screen there. They can be viewed, accessed. It's an opportunity for you to connect with your audience. In order to get into the toolkit, it's quite simple. If you're part of RIBAproductselector.com or NBS Plus or the NBS National BIM Library, either one of those, 2 of them, or all 3 of them, you can get a position and a place within the NBS BIM Toolkit. Essentially, the BIM Toolkit just takes information from those 3 sources, and whichever manufacturers exist within those 3 products are placed within the toolkit at the relevant point. Story so far, we launched early April, and pleased to say at the point we launched, we were awarded the BIM Show Live Best BIM Innovation Award, which was fantastic given that the tool was only a day or 2 old at that point. Since then, we've had over 7,000 visitors spanning 105 different countries, and close to 1,500 projects have been created in that short space of time. To give you an idea as to how our NBS Plus manufacturer customers benefit, there's been over 12,000 visits to NBS Plus directly from the toolkit already. So NBS Plus manufacturers, for example, can benefit from inclusion in the toolkit, and that's happening already. And you can see that kind of number is valuable to those manufacturers. So things to do next. From a manufacturer's point of view, I would just encourage you to register with the NBS BIM Toolkit. It costs you nothing. You can register your email address, and then you can play around with the toolkit to your heart's content. You can create projects so you can understand how the tool can be used in the context of a project, or you can simply just browse all of the object definitions, the library templates, and look up the products that relate directly to your business. So you can look up those products, you can view the LODs, the geometry specifications, and the level of information specifications. View the ones that are applicable to your project, your product, I should say. Have a look at them, get your head around them. They won't be that alien to you. You know, a boiler manufacturer looking at our LOD and LOI, it will make sense. Likewise for a ceiling manufacturer or partition manufacturer, it should all make sense to you. If you want to look at it offline and think about how you might integrate the LODs and LOIs within your business, and download the Excel spreadsheet. You can do whatever you like with that. You can use it, you can abuse it, you can modify it. The whole idea of the template is to help you align your product data to the standard UK construction language. So if you call something, I don't know, boiler duty at the moment, and if the standard template calls it heat output, then it's important that you align your product data to that so that information can flow from A to B. If not, someone has to convert that manually, which is not necessarily quick, time-consuming, and if we standardize and structure our information in a consistent way, that information can flow far more quickly. So think about how you might use the template. Please do have a look at the templates and actually give us your feedback. So we'd love to hear from you. You guys as manufacturers know products extremely well, and you may have some comments, some suggestions in terms of how to enhance the templates further. The toolkit was launched in beta stage in April. It was deliberately labelled with beta because it's the first release. We're collecting lots and lots of feedback and have already improved the BIM toolkit. A newer version of the toolkit was launched a couple of weeks ago. The next versions are coming out increasingly more and more often, and you can see ultimately how we're developing that to become a better and better tool. So send us your feedback. It's very much welcome. And if you can send feedback to info@thenbs.com, that would be brilliant. So think about how you might organize your product data so that it aligns with the terms used in the toolkit. And think about the classification system as well. Have a look at that. Use the classification system. You might want to just label your product literature with that classification code. You may want to use it to structure some of the technical information that you provide. Manufacturers, customers of ours already, you can largely sit back and relax in the sense that if you're a product selector customer, an NBS Plus customer, or a National BIM Library customer, we've already placed you into the BIM toolkit in the relevant points, and you can continue to benefit from being positioned there. Of course, if you're not a customer of any of those products, by all means give us a shout. We can explain how those products can help you and also how they can help you with the relationship they now have with the NBS BIM Toolkit. So by all means get in touch. And that's it from me in terms of the PowerPoint. And what I'm going to dive into now is, I'll just go to the online version of the toolkit. Hopefully you can see that now on screen. So this is me just logged in under my own name, and I've got a couple of projects that I've set up previously. But even before I get into any of that, if I just search for a boiler, hopefully you can see the results. So I've done a quick search for boiler, and I'm just scrolling down. There's lots of different boilers I can select from: gas-fired water tube boilers, and so on. So if I clicked on gas-fired condensing boiler, which tends to be a common one, I can now see the level of detail. So this is level of detail 2, and you can see the general geometry on the right-hand side, which is just required for space planning, early stage space planning. A little bit more detail on the right-hand side for the boiler for stage 3. More boiler details for stage 4. And a good bit more for stage 5 and so on. So if I expand on one of these, hopefully you can see that there's quite a bit of help and detail in terms of the sorts of geometry that is expected at stage 5. This isn't necessarily every nut and bolt that goes into the component, but it's a level of geometry that's reflective of that stage. So we're at stage 5, we're going to build this. So that's the sort of level of detail that's required. So jumping back up to the top there, so I'm still looking at the gas-fired condensing boiler. I can browse the level of information tab. And again, I can scroll down. Early stage information is fairly basic. But then you see I get into stage 4, and there's a lot more manufacturer performance, product performance information in there, everything from operating pressures, burner types, and so on. Stage 5, more information comes in again. And then I get to the bottom, stage 6, and that's when a lot of the Kobe properties, the warranty, the as-built information all starts to appear. So this is the description of the technical information. I had an early question earlier on asking how to get access to the templates. So I'm currently looking at the gas-fired condensing boiler, having searched for that. I can now literally just click that, and that will download the template into Excel format. So you can see hopefully the bottom screen there, and I can probably just open that up. And then if I've got Excel running, you can see that template fire up. We give you some help in the template so you can understand what we're doing, and then you go to the tabs and you can look at the different properties that are part of the BIM toolkit, and you can look at structuring your technical information against those. So we're just talking about structuring technical information in a digital form. You're still going to have brochures, you're still going to have catalogue information and web information, but behind the scenes, this is driven in a standard and consistent way using the UK construction vocabulary. Then information can flow from A to B, makes your products that bit more easy to work with. It certainly makes your product information easier to work with, and that can be interfaced with all the various BIM tools that are developing. So let's just look briefly at another one. Conscious of time actually, so I'll just do a quick search for ceilings. So again, lots of different things. If I just pick up, say, a modular suspended ceiling, something fairly common. Level of detail stage 2, fairly basic, just basically a plan view in a section. Generic BIM objects from the National BIM Library are displayed there, so anybody who wants to use them, they can do. Stage 3 gets a little bit more details, setting out information, very basic stuff. Manufacturers that are part of the NBS National BIM Library start to appear, so I can browse those, I can look at their products, I can download those objects. Stage 4, again, a bit more detail about the ceiling. A bit more kind of detail in terms of fixings, hangers, that kind of information. And then level information, same again. Basic information at the start, but catalog information, case studies all there for manufacturers that are part of RIBA product selector. Start to get into properties, durabilities, fire performance, all sorts of performance issues. Brings in NBS Plus, the manufacturer's product specification system. Then stage 4, more technical information. Stage 5, more details. You browse it offline outside of the webinar and just have a play around, and you can look at that information at your leisure. Okay, then, so we've got a question about COBE. What is COBE? COBE stands for the Construction and Operation of Buildings Information Exchange, which is a bit of a mouthful. COBE in the UK is a British standard, and essentially it is a standard form to collect technical information about the products that go into a building, essentially. So you will describe a boiler or a ceiling using a list of properties that describe what it is. The manufacturer name, the manufacturer model number, the date it was installed, when the next service is due, for example, if it's a boiler, and that kind of thing. So COBE is just a basic information schema that can be viewed in Excel format. Some of the questions. Who created the templates? NBS and the team that we assembled, which included BDP, Mark McDonald, created the templates. We've got in-house expertise across all of the disciplines. We employ services engineers, landscape architects, structural engineers, architects, of course. And we work with outside organisations to build those templates as well. What we want to do, though, and what we have done, is in releasing the toolkit in April, we've populated all the templates and are now asking for feedback. So we're working with trade organisations. It'd be great for you as manufacturers to give us this feedback. You could give us this feedback direct, or you could give us this feedback via your respective trade organisation. Don't forget we had that steering panel, which comprised of a lot of the institutes. We've worked with CIBSE, for example, when it comes to services information. And the whole idea is that we will collect, listen to feedback, and improve the toolkit templates month on month from now onwards. We're committed to the toolkit. The funding period ended in April, but we are driving that forward with continued development, and it's an opportunity really for the UK to place its construction industry and construction product information really at the forefront of BIM, and that will be a success not just in the UK but overseas as well. Couple of other questions. What about flooring products? There's a whole host of objects in there. So if I just search for floor coverings or flooring, you can browse those and you can select any type of definition that comes up on screen. Multi-layered flooring, wood floors, screeds. There's lots of things in there, whether it's a floor covering system or structural floors as well. Is the product data templates different for all products? Yes, they kind of are. They do vary from product to product. So each of the object definitions has different LOIs. So if I went to some of the definitions, I'll just pick some of these at random. So if I picked tile roof, And you can see in this case we've got different geometry. And then if I click on the information, we've got information that relates to roofing systems. So we've got thermal design, structural design, fire performance, and so on. So there's lots of different information there, and it does vary from object to object. There's another question popped up in terms of the relationship or the difference between the NBS BIM templates and the SPSE ones. SPSE have done some great work that's taken a number of templates. I think there's about 6 that are final. I think there's another 40 or so that are well progressed, and there's more planned. A lot of good work done in that area, particularly for the services sector. The creation of the templates is managed by there's a BIM for M2 working group, and they have a template steering panel. And at a recent Manufacturer Strategic BIM Forum, which is chaired by Dave Philp, we agreed that we would be looking to align the work that SPSE has done with the NBS BIM Toolkit so that we can end up with one consistent library of product data templates that everybody can use. So you'll see hopefully over the coming months a greater and greater alignment with the work that others have done, and you'll see that aligning with the NBS BIM Toolkit. One question, I think probably just before we wrap up, can content be created by external sources, or can content that has been created by external sources be included, which is an interesting one. Yes, it can. We have a design team with architects and different disciplines that manage this data, and if there is information that you'd like us to include that we haven't, or if indeed there is a template for an object that we haven't yet published that you would like to submit, please get in touch with us. We can talk to you about that process, and we'd love to include that information. Obviously, we follow a particular process when we create that information. It has to align with our standard dictionary and language that we use, but that's easily achieved. And if you want to submit that information, what you can do is simply tell us what you think. There's a link bottom right-hand corner. If you find any issues that you would like to report, you can submit a bug or a request for change, but send us your feedback that way, or email us just direct at info@thenbs.com. But the success of the BIM Toolkit very much relies on that wider industry engagement. And if industry adopts a common language and a common framework for all of its data, then the UK industry can really thrive. It can become significantly more efficient, and we can create those better buildings and those better built environments that the government have targeted us as an industry with. I'm probably going to have to wrap up now. It's approaching just 3 o'clock. Hopefully you found that enjoyable. There's been a good attendance, and we will send the video, the recording of the webinar through to you via email, so you can have a refresh and a look at it at your leisure. Don't forget, if you want to contact me or any of the team at NBS, by all means do so. Have a look at the nbs.com/BIM Toolkit site. It's there, free to use, it costs you nothing. Just register, have a look, send us your likes, send us your dislikes. We'd love to hear from you, and we do want to make the toolkit bigger and better for the good of UK industry and to help achieve the UK government BIM mandate. Thanks for listening. By all means get in touch. My name is Chapman, and hope to speak to you and hear from you soon. Bye bye for now.